Hello. Okay, so it's that time of the year again. Assembly time. And this year I have to admit, I have felt very, very compelled, moved, you might say, by the Holy Spirit to attend the convention. And I thought that maybe you would like to attend with me.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I believe I have everything that I need. I've got my badge, obviously. Got my silver sword, which Jehovah knows can help you through any difficult situation. No, not that silver sword. I'm turning over a new leaf. I am actually referring to, Jehovah's Word. Thank you, governing body. I feel so renewed since I've made this decision. So what else can I do except share it with the rest of you guys? So I think I have everything. Again, silver sword, got my badge. What else? Got my trusty notebook, writing device, of course. And I would say it is no coincidence that our assemblies are held at the same time as back to school sales, because this little bad boy was 20 cents. Thank you, Jehovah. Got my umbrella. And of course, in old-fashioned JW style, it's broken. So I do have my trusty black tape to fasten it to my chair. It's so exciting, isn't it? I can feel His Holy Spirit moving through me. Oh, and most importantly, the highlight of every Jehovah's Witness child's assembly, my trusty fan. So I think I'm pretty much ready to go. And don't worry, for those of you who cannot afford the dollar store fan, of course I'll have a tutorial at the end on how you can make your own, as many of us did when we were younger. And of course, to stay in line with my buddy Tony, got me a little bit of whiskey here. Just a little nip, for after lunch. I'm sure it's lunchtime somewhere. Smooth. And I think that's it. And I was all ready to go until, you guessed it, someone sent me this link. Jehovah's Witnesses moves Jehovah's Witnesses move, right? Is it move? Sorry, I was raised Jehovah's Witness, so my grammar may be off. But it does say Jehovah's Witnesses moves summer conferences to an online format. Well, not to be picky, but I'm going to be picky. I believe it should read Jehovah's Witnesses move summer conferences to an online format. And let's be honest, we know they're not called conferences. I'm very curious as to what inspired this article to begin with. Let's see what Boise, Idaho / Nampa is reporting on the Jehovah's Witnesses moves summer conferences to an online format.
Jehovah's Witnesses closed their places of worship, their public ministry, and moved their conferences online. Idaho News 6 reporter Steve Dent provides details on what this all means.
Jehovah's Witnesses have been holding conventions in the U.S. since 1897.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to translate here. Jehovah's Witnesses have been holding conventions since 1897. I'm surprised that he used the word convention when in the title it was conference, because convention's real culty. JW culty. But yes, Mr. Dent is correct that Jehovah's Witnesses have been brainwashing people in large groups since 1897. So that would be accurate. I think that's what he meant to say. I'm very curious, Mr. Dent, if you happen to be a former witness or affiliated with witnesses. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm a former witness, and I'm affiliated with many witnesses, and it's a great thing. But I have to wonder what it was that triggered him to want to cover this particular story. Mr. Dent, can I call you Harvey? I would just be interested in knowing that. Or heck, maybe you just thought it would be a nice, way to kind of show how COVID is affecting everyone.
And they expected around 20,000 people to show up in Nampa. But this year, it didn't happen, as they decided back in April to move their conferences online.
So they're canceling it. Okay, granted, this was just my badge from our cruise, but I felt like it served the same purpose. Like, I felt that Jehovah knew what I was trying to do, but I just didn't have the ability. Like, I don't have a printer. I can't make my own badge. Are they wearing badges? I bet you they're wearing fucking badges.
As they decided back in April to move their conferences online.
It is a modern-day miracle.
Really, Robert? It's a modern-day miracle? The use of technology? Isn't that kind of like the Amish saying that the big vroom vroom machines with the 4 roundy things on it are way more dependable and can haul much more than the horse and buggy? It's a modern day miracle. Thank you, Jehovah. So now apparently Jehovah has come up with technology. And trust me, this used to not be allowed. Oh yeah, once upon a time, anything electronic was bad, you know. It's the devil, Bobby Boucher. Anyhow.
And really, it itself is an act of love that we feel, a gift to the world.
Man, here we are again. Jehovah's Witnesses are always feeling that what they do is a gift to the world. How about those of you out there who maybe never were a witness? Do you feel, how do you feel about receiving this gift? That they took the time for you as an act of love. Thank you, Jehovah.
A gift to the world.
Jehovah's Witnesses use 2 guiding principles to make their decisions.
Okay, so they use 2 guiding principles to make their decisions.
2 guiding principles to make their decisions.
2 guiding principles to make their decisions.
2 guiding principles
To make their decisions. All right. We all know what those are, right? Jehovah's Witnesses use 2 guiding principles to make their decisions. This is hugely important. And I challenge you all to pause right now and put in the comments what you believe those 2 guiding principles are. Well, I think there's 8 guiding principles, and they're actually referred to as the governing body members of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, and they run all of the Jehovah's Witness communities and communes, because there's a form of that, throughout the rest of the world. So I would say there's 8 guiding principles, but all right, 2 guiding principles. And this is a worldly guy here who's done this article, so I'm assuming he's done his research, right? Obviously, that's what journalists do. One guiding principle would be, what is the easiest way to brainwash and keep people under control? And then the other guiding principle is, be prepared to backpedal and change your mind. Of course, calling it, as we know, new light. And I guess there could be some asterisks in there. So, for instance, a lot of times decisions are made once people start killing themselves, you know? So, like, when things go really bad, when a lot of people were dying because they weren't getting blood transfusions, and a lot of the suicides were occurring from shunning, that you'll see throughout the history that they will change their guiding principles. These 8 dudes claim that they're actually given messages from Jehovah. They don't call themselves prophets because, God forbid, they won't want to be like the Mormons. So they don't necessarily use that word, but it's the same concept. Big Holy Spirit dude gives them messages. They interpret the messages, curve them a little bit to where they can best suit the organization, how they can get the most money, the most members. There's a whole slew of things. I'm going to try not to get into it.
Jehovah's Witnesses use 2 guiding principles to make their decisions: the sanctity of life and love thy neighbor.
All right, so according to this reporter, Steve Dent, he is communicating to the public that Jehovah's Witnesses use 2 guiding principles to make decisions. That they use the sanctity of life. This is extremely inaccurate. Jehovah's Witnesses make those claims, and I really wish he would have done his research a little bit more, because here's my concern. When you have a reporter or anyone who is doing research and reporting on something, people tend to take that as factual. And this gentleman, Mr. Dent, is, in my opinion, communicating really bad misinformation to the public. And here's what my main concern is. There's a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that are still mentally in. They have physically escaped the cult, right? And right now we're living in a time of fear. And a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I will talk about this in another video with our Armageddon mentality and the tribulation and all of that, which has triggered a lot of people right now. And what this gentleman is inadvertently doing, I hope it's inadvertent, has put a message out reminding Jehovah's Witnesses of the brainwashing, or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses of the brainwashing, that everything is done out of the sanctity of life and out of love. That can very much trigger former Jehovah's Witnesses or some who are prepared to escape to stay, because it reinforces what the governing body has said, what the Jehovah's Witnesses are brainwashed to believe. It comes down to this. One of the main principles that Jehovah's Witnesses have actually kills people. They have guidelines and rules, and I'm going to try to not use JW terminology, because trust me, it's like learning a fucking second language. But they have rules that the members have to follow, and one of those rules is if your child, yourself, a family member, a friend, anyone, requires a blood transfusion in order to stay alive, they will inevitably be shunned if they accept that transfusion. Now, there's a lot of ins and outs to it, and I'm pretty sure I've done a ton of videos on it, and if I haven't, God knows a ton of us have. But this whole idea that they value life is completely flushed down the toilet the moment you read their policy on blood transfusions. The Jehovah's Witnesses are not to take blood transfusions. In fact, they're required to die. And there's a whole hospital liaison committee that will basically group around and protect a patient to ensure that non-Jehovah's Witnesses and medical people cannot get to the patient to help them change their mind or to talk about any kind of alternatives. This policy, of course, has changed over time, and again, what we call new light. So the sanctity of life right there. I apologize, Steve Dent, but you are completely inaccurate. The Jehovah's Witnesses do not have two guiding principles, one being the sanctity of life and one being an act of love. I don't know if you read that on their website, but it's inaccurate. But that is my main concern with a worldly platform, worldly being non-Jehovah's Witness, that's part of the language, reinforcing that Jehovah's Witnesses do things out of the sanctity of life and as an act of love. Completely not true. I was 14 when I was shipped off to a drug addict, alcoholic, and a rapist, / wife beater, / worldly person. He's a philanderer, heathen. That might have been what happened to me. Those descriptions were all perspective from my mother, but that was what her perspective was to the person that she sent me out to, in an act of love to show me how much of a loss I would be at without Jehovah.
Fail.
And I would guarantee that if you were to scrub the internet just a little bit, there are tons of people out there, friends and family members whose loved ones have died or committed suicide because of these principles that you're reinforcing that the Jehovah's Witnesses live by. That's the issue I got with that. Moving on.
And we felt that it was an act of love to stop our public ministry, stop going to people's doors and knocking on them, and also cease all public gatherings.
For the first time, I 100%, you guys, I agree with the governing body. It is absolutely an act of love that they are no longer, disturbing people at home, knocking on their doors. How did he put it? Let's not misquote.
And we felt that it was an act of love to stop our public ministry, stop going to people's doors and knocking on them.
Yes, it is an act of love that you're not going to people's doors and knocking on them. Thank you. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I don't know, I have to mark the calendar. It's the first time I've ever agreed with the Hateful Eight. That's crazy shit. All right, moving on.
Jehovah's Witnesses have around 8.5 million members.
That is correct. Jehovah's Witnesses have approximately 8.5 million members. That is a very, very large cult. You too can join now and lose all of your freedoms.
And the reason why people come to our conventions and the reason why we look forward to them is because they're so uplifting.
That's not entirely true. Imagine that. There's a number of reasons that people attend the conventions, and not very often is it because they're uplifting. They weigh on you. There's a lot of messages in code that specifically tell you while you're sitting there and listening to these all day conventions. One massive brainwashing session to serve Jehovah and the governing body. How about this? Tell me in your comments how you felt when you were going to meetings. Not just the hour and a half to 2 hour meetings that you do once a week, times 3. But then multiple times during the year, you have to go all day. Please tell me how uplifted you felt. Love to hear from you. Let me know down in the comments.
So Jehovah's Witnesses began a huge undertaking to produce online content that needed to be translated into 511 different languages in an effort to help people through a dark time.
Okay, I just want to throw this out here really quick. As many of you know, or may not know, Mr. Dent, Jehovah's Witnesses are most known by those of us who were actually Jehovah's Witnesses for the mass pedophilia that occurs within the organization, specifically in congregations. So, for instance, I myself was a member of 3 different congregations, and I myself was sexually abused in each of those congregations. And I myself witnessed nothing being done. So, for some of us, if I was still a witness and a child, I would be so grateful for this online format because I knew it would be less likely for me to be around other Jehovah's Witnesses that would have access to fucking me. So, yeah, I'm definitely on board with them going online. That would have been something very cool for you to include in your article as to one of the pluses for their online format. But just a suggestion.
All the things that they thought brought them joy can be taken away from them like that. We saw a world that was brought to its knees by a pandemic in 3 weeks. You know, everything that we put our trust in disintegrated.
Wow. So for non-Jehovah's Witnesses out there, when he made this statement, everything that we put our trust in was gone. Like that. I'm sorry, can some former witnesses out there, current witnesses, anyone? You don't put your trust in anything except Jehovah and the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. So there was nothing else that they were putting their trust in that they lost. They are literally to put their trust into nothing except Jehovah and the governing body. So this jibber jabber that Hendricks is doing is basically just a regurgitation of what they've heard worldly people say, and they repeat it so that they look part of the group and they don't look like a bunch of creepy culty weirdos, which they are. I think as somebody who's on the receiving end of this article, I probably would have been able to swallow that big old spoon of shit if it had been prefaced with according to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, or according to the 8 men who are running this cult. If somehow he had referenced according to, because yeah, as an unbiased person, as a journalist, 100% you should report on everything. But the fact that that verbiage kind of came from your, not kind of, came from your mouth as if you support that is a little scary to me.
With many things in our society out of our control and looking much different, Jehovah's Witnesses looks at those intangibles that can deliver people hope.
I'm sorry, but Jehovah's Witnesses look at those intangibles that can bring people hope. I know a lot of my followers are Christians, Muslims, atheists. I would say that all of them have hope. And I would say that any religious organization, any decent one, part of their presence is to provide hope. So I really don't like the way that it's presented, that Jehovah's Witnesses are somehow unique or special in this way. It's very disturbing.
And so to be able to have inner joy based on our faith, our relationship with our Creator, our relationship with our neighbors and our family, that is true joy that can be sustained.
Steve Dent, Idaho News 6.
All right, well, clearly I have a couple of other things. And this one I did say to my mother. Yes, my mommy. When they decided to no longer go door to door, I found that very, very interesting, because you never saw any of the disciples in the past avoid people because of disease. I mean, Jesus certainly ministered to lepers. Why should you be any different? When I get to the bottom of this article, and you can bet I will be contacting Mr. Dent, my buddy, Harvey. The tag at the end of this says, for more information on Jehovah's Witnesses and for ways to attend their online convention, click here. That is taking people directly to jw.org. I love Boise, Idaho. I love my community, but I'm a little embarrassed that we've put out an article to support an organization that has caused such horrific damage to people. I feel very discouraged that Idaho News 6 either didn't do enough research or completely knows the cult that they're dealing with, and then put out this article with such positivity with a link in the end on how people can join so that they too can be shunned, shat upon, tortured, and tormented. I guess it kind of puts me at a loss for words. So, this is not a positive organization. It is not about the sanctity of life. It is not about love thy neighbor. And it is not about making decisions out of love. Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. Period. And unfortunately, that was not properly represented here. So, will I still be attending the assembly? Hells yeah! And I hope you guys will join me. And until then, I'll see you next time.
If you like what you see, all new episodes are coming, and you do not want to miss out. Click subscribe now.